This podcast discusses real-life experiences that may include topics such as grief, trauma, medical or mental health challenges, and other emotionally sensitive content. Please take care of yourself while listening, and if at any point in the conversation you feel overwhelmed, it's okay to pause, step away, or skip this episode entirely. While some of our guests are licensed professionals, the Holiday Survival Podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and should not be considered medical, psychological, or therapeutic advice. If you are struggling or need support, please reach out to a qualified healthcare provider or mental health professional. Now, let's begin. The holidays can be the most wonderful time of the year, or they can literally be the worst. That's why I'm bringing back the Holiday Survival Podcast, the show that gets real about a season that isn't always merry and bright. If the holidays bring up stress, grief, pressure, complicated family dynamics, or just big emotions, you are in the right place. My name is Erin Billings, and I am your host. In each episode, we'll have honest conversations, share practical tools, and offer hope for anyone navigating the messy, beautiful, and emotional reality of this time of the year. No forced cheer, no sugarcoating, just real stories, real support, and reminders that you are not alone. I hope that you enjoyed the show. Welcome back to the Holiday Survival Podcast. The holidays can bring up grief, they can bring up loneliness, they can bring up disappointment, and today's episode dives into those experiences, especially from the perspective of single mothers that have navigated loss and guilt and carry the weight of societal expectations. My guest, Dionna Chambers, will share her personal story from childhood experiences of her parents' divorce to the challenges of creating holidays for her own family in her own words. So thank you so much, Dionna, for being here with me. I'm looking forward to creating this episode with you because I think that many people out there need to hear this message. So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, who you are, what you do, so that our listeners can get to know you.
Thanks for having me on. I'm Dionna Chambers. I'm an intuitive business coach and strategist. I work with entrepreneurs in scaling their businesses without burnout. So I use a combination of intuitive guidance and strategy to help them live a better life and hopefully make some more money in their business.
For sure. Those things are needed, especially in the business world. This episode will probably be on the more personal side of things, which, man, I think that as business owners, sometimes we forget that we're human, especially online, because you see the facade of the glamorous coaches. And I think from viewing you online and then seeing you in person and how you do events, it's very apparent you have your ish together. And that's all from the business end. But I feel like getting to know you on the personal level, that's where I think a lot of people connect. And from a business perspective, I think that's good for business.
I think so too. I really do a good job of really being myself, right? Like you asked me, how am I doing today? And I'm like, not great, right? I'm in luteal, I'm feeling sad, my hormones are up and down. And I've always been that way, but with more life experience, I am a lot more raw as I get older. And I love that aspect of me because you're not getting these masks. You're getting someone who's real and colored and ebbs and flows with the changes of life.
Yeah, I think that's really powerful and very important for people to know, especially if you're in need of a business coach. You want to know that the person that you're going to be working with is a real person. That's one of the key things for me whenever I'm hiring. Is this person legit? Are they fake? If they're fake, I can't be around it, especially with the nature of what I do. And I'm sure you have a lot of clients like that as well. And that's what attracts them to you. So I think that's great. The holidays are often portrayed as joyful and picture perfect, but for so many people, that's just not the reality. Can you share what the holidays have been like for you?
The holidays have been really complex and layered, right? I went from being, a child with my parents married for half of my childhood, or a little over half of my childhood, where we did have more traditional holidays, to my parents abruptly divorcing and then us being separated. And so that was a huge trauma, multiple layers. And then I've had one serious partnership. We were engaged. I had my son with this man. And we did try our best to do more traditional aspects of holidays, but he wasn't big into them either. So I was the one that would lead the charge. And then when we separated, it felt like I was back on my own again. Like I felt like that 13-year-old whose parents divorced and was on her own, but now I have a child. And so the holidays in general have been very hard for me, very challenging, oftentimes not having the finances that I would have wanted, even in the partnership I was in. And so I think to this day, even in my mid-30s, I still haven't really, like I told you in our pre-call, like a really juicy holiday where I could do whatever I want, travel wherever I wanted to, give Zen, mostly what he would want, with an asterisk, because I'm not wanting to raise a spoiled brat. And
that part.
Yeah. And just have a really great time. I can't say I've really had that experience yet. And I am hopeful. Like I am setting my intention to experience that with the person I end up spending my life with. But up to this point, Erin, holidays have been pretty shitty.
So you've spoken about your parents' divorce and you shared some experience with grief in that. How have those experiences shaped the way that you show up or struggle to show up during the holidays now?
Grief is colored and layered, and I believe that it subconsciously hijacks the holidays. And I think anyone who's had significant loss would probably agree with that statement. And so I think what's happening is, on the one level, logically, you're like, I need to do all these things and get the tree and put the decorations up or whatever you believe in, and then host the dinners to do the things. But inside you're aching. It feels like inside you're dying because you are missing someone or people that have passed. So that's definitely something that I feel I've experienced. I had my first major death when I was 5 or 6. My aunt died tragically in a car crash. And then I had another experience with grief at 19, my first boyfriend ever, or one of my first boyfriends, who also I lost my virginity to, was murdered. And then I had an ex-boyfriend and family friend last year died tragically, and he was 33. And so it's like I've had a lot of these major deaths happen. And so without even realizing it, consciously has been layered into all holidays. Because on some level, every time someone dies, they literally take a piece of not only your heart, but your soul with them, and you cannot get it back. It doesn't matter how many beautiful experiences you have after their death. You cannot recollect those pieces of yourself. It's impossible. So I think not only with my trauma as a child, teenager, you add that in, and it's just a cocktail of life, isn't it?
I really like how you explain that as a cocktail of life, because I think you're right. Grief is very layered, and it does touch on us, especially at the moments where we're very nostalgic. I feel like the holidays just brings nostalgia up to the surface. And I think grief can be something that comes up in those moments. For me, my grandmother passed several years ago, and my grandmother taught me how to play the piano when I was 3 years old. And so anytime I sit down at the piano, I think about her. But specifically during the holidays, our family would get around the piano and they would sing. And that grief will sometimes hit you whenever now they still gather around the piano, but you start thinking about the people who are not there anymore. And so you were right on with that. As a single mother, you've described feeling both love and guilt during this season, wanting to create a joyous environment for your son while simultaneously managing survival mode. What has that tension looked like for you in real life?
The first year I was on my own with him, I did not buy a tree. And all subsequent years, I've purchased a tree because I'm like, I at least want him to have that, right? And put up some decorations, like lights, maximum. That's it. But I promised myself, no matter what was going on financially, that he would always get as many presents as I could get him with my budget. And I've done a pretty good job at that. Or like I get him 1 or 2 big things. And that was my promise to myself, because although I did have my parents together for the majority of my childhood, they were broke the whole time. There was always money problems. They fought about money problems. And I was like, I don't want to replicate that with my sons. With the bare minimum, I may be single, but I can still buy him things that he wants. And I don't have to say I can't afford it, because I just look at it like, how can I afford it? And that's what I've done with him. And I'm really proud of that. Less about the presents, but more about access, or me believing in myself to create what I can on my own. But there's this ache of not wanting to be alone anymore, and the longing of meeting a man that can hold all of it. And in this day and age, it's very hard to find a man that can hold all of it. And if you want the truth, that's the main thing I feel during the holidays, is I just really wish I had someone. Because I want Zen to see that maybe mommy was alone for X amount of years of my childhood, but then she met like the love of her life who really cared for her and held her. Because it's my turn to be held, and I do feel that way at this point of my life. But that's really what the ache has been, honestly, over the last 5 years.
I think that makes sense. My mom remarried when I was 10, and I think that whenever mom has her partner and she's happy in that relationship, it does make a difference. It, of course, changes the holidays. It changes the environment, the home environment, all that kind of stuff. There's dynamics that you have to think about. But when mom's happy, I think everybody's happy. That's at least been my experience. Society tells us that the holidays are supposed to be the most wonderful time of the year. How do those expectations impact people, in your opinion, who are grieving or feel disconnected?
For starters, when you're grieving or feeling disconnection, or you've had a major life event, let's say you've lost a job, which that happened to me 2 holiday seasons ago. I lost a long-term contract with a company I was working for, literally like in November, which was horrible. You feel the opposite of what society says to feel. You feel like this is the worst time of the year, and nobody talks about that. I don't care how many Hallmark movies you watch about love. That's not reality. And sometimes, every once in a while, there is a miracle. Of course, that's true. Of course, you hear stories of someone reconnecting with a long-lost lover, falling upon money, or however you want to call it. And those things do happen, and I absolutely believe in all of that. I'm big on magic, right? But the majority of people, especially in this current global climate, are literally miserable during the holidays. That expectation from a societal lens is extremely dangerous and poisonous. It behooves us, I believe, as more conscious leaders to talk about this, because then it actually reduces its charge, right? It actually can be alchemized into something that can be connective, that can be really joyous, that can uplift and create fulfillment versus this spike of happiness in the moment because we were told to be happy. So it's like, how do we create fulfillment through connection of shared life experiences versus succumbing to some sort of societal expectation and obligation that really has never been real, if you think about it.
No, I love that. That's right on. I have a lot of friends that are single moms, and they feel so much pressure from the expectations that are put on them, not even from their family and friends or jobs, but from just living in the world, being on social media. Social media is a highlight reel. Whether people want to believe that or not, people are posting the good things. They're not posting when the shit hits the fan. They're not posting. Maybe they are. Some folks, they live their lives and they post it all. And we get to kind of watch and see when that happens. But I think more people sharing these kinds of raw and real things, it helps us know that we're not alone. So for someone that's in the same space, maybe they're heartbroken, maybe they're just not in the holiday spirit, what are some practical ways for them to take care of themselves and find small moments of meaning?
I'm a big pen to paper person. I think write it down. Write down, what would you like? Write it down. I'm a big believer in having a vision statement. What would you like the holidays to look like? What is realistic for this season? And then what would feel good? I think that's number one. Let's just figure out what the expectations are and what's realistic. And then number two, I think it's communicating that to someone that you love and care about and trust that can co-create an experience with you, whether it's a cousin or a sibling. Hey, this is what I'm feeling this year, but I also don't want to throw it out. What can we create together? So I think co-regulation is really big. And then thirdly, I think, can you find the joy for you first? So is that, you know what, I do want to buy myself that handbag, or I do want to go and maybe do a staycation myself the week before Christmas. What would be that little gift you give yourself first before feeding into everybody else? I think those are the three things I would say are the most important when you're really, truly navigating adversity and loss.
I think that's great. I love the pen to paper idea. One of our other guests, she mentioned that she created these holiday cards for communication, and that kind of leans into what you're talking about too with the co-regulation. I think we can use a lot of what this podcast series is built for is to have those conversations in a healthy way and communicate. Communication is, I feel like, a lost art form these days. Part of the reason why so many of us are single.
Oh, yeah. That's a whole other podcast episode, isn't it?
So I think this is the last question. What would you want other single moms or anyone navigating this kind of grief during the holidays to remember about what enough really looks like?
Enough is waking up today, making sure your kid has a full belly, clothes on their body, and love. It truly is enough, no matter what day of the year it is. You are only required to do those things always, period. And if you decide you want to do extra during the holidays, that's awesome. And you don't have to do a lot. You could just pick one tradition. Hey, we're going to get a tree, or, oh, we're going to put up lights, and that be enough. As long as you're loving on that baby or those babies and you make sure you take care of yourself in the process, that's enough. That is it.
Yeah, that's a really good way to think of it. I really like that you framed it as long as you are taken care of and your children are taken care of, nothing else really matters, because that is enough. The love that you have for one another, and you're trying to do the best you can with what you've got access to. I think that was really beautifully said. So we've come to the end of our time together. How can our listeners connect with you if they'd like more information on what you do as a business coach?
I am primarily on Instagram and Threads, and it's just my name, which I'm sure will be in the show notes, Dionna Chambers. And on those pages, you also see the link to my Stand Store, which is how you can find out more about my offerings. And you can also book a free clarity call if you're interested in exploring a one-to-one mentorship or a group setting for your business.
I think that will be great. We will make sure that all of your links are in the show notes. And then also in our gift guide, Dionna has a feature in there. So make sure to check that out. The link to that will also be in the show notes. Dionna, thank you so much for being here and being raw and real with us and just sharing your heart. I really do appreciate it. And you have anything else to add? Final words?
Yeah. In this current climate, both in the United States and globally, there's a lot of uncertainty. And I think the best thing we can do as a collective, regardless of your beliefs, is to stay connected, to work past the ego and alternative points of view. And remember, as cliche as it may sound, love really is the answer. It's what bridges gaps. It's what ends wars. And try not to take yourself so serious, number one. And remember that connection above all else is how we thrive as a human race.
I love that. It's a good word. Thank you for listening to the Holiday Survival Podcast. If this episode helped you feel a little bit more seen, supported, or sane during the holidays, it would mean so much if you'd leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts and tap the 5-star rating on Spotify. It's a simple way to help more people find the show, and it truly makes a difference. For resources, links, and next steps from today's episode, just check out our show notes and be sure to click the follow button on whatever platform you're listening to this on so that you never miss an episode from this season. Remember, you don't have to navigate the holidays alone. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next episode.